Okay. The October 26th Board of Selectmen agenda, Select Board agenda, is now in session at 6 p.m. With Alan Daggett is on Zoom. He is not in the state. Excuse me, the state. And note that Sheila Matthews Bull is absent today. So before we start the meeting, I've asked Yanina to say a few words, and then we're going to have the chief say a few things.
Good evening, everyone. Yanina Nicholas, Interim Town Manager. I would like to talk a little bit today about, even though it's such a beautiful day outside, obviously we all woke up to very horrific and tragic events in Lewiston. Who didn't hear, there was a mass shooting in Lewiston, and we, of course, cannot ignore it because it's our community, it's our fellow Mainers. So this morning, I think all of us were on the phone trying to get to this realization, to this world today, and see what did we wake up to. I tried to reach out to Lewiston to offer our support as community. I said that we would be happy to support them in any shape or form, and I hope you as residents will support this statement as well. I wanted to say that today our community is as divided as it's ever been, unfortunately. But when you look at events that happened yesterday in Lewiston, you start rethinking a lot of things in your life, right? You start thinking that maybe there is something more to life, and maybe there is something bigger than the questions we have. So I would just like to remind everyone, well, one, stay safe, take care of each other, take care of your family. Please call your family and make sure they're okay. Call your kids, parents, call your friends. And just remember that, we're all here for each other, and we are here for us, but we are also here for Lewiston as well. So I would like to take a moment of silence, if it's okay with everyone, just to think about those whom we lost today as community, and just to think about our lives and how we can reflect on it as community.
Thank you.
And so we would like to invite Chief Everett, who would like to talk a little bit about how Kennebunkport's community is preparing and what we are doing on our end to prepare for this event, unfortunate event.
Good evening, Chief Sanford.
Chief Sanford.
It's okay.
Not
It's
every.
okay. I've been called
Sorry.
worse. I've been called
sorry.
worse. It's good. It's good. So unfortunately, those events are still unfolding in Lewiston. I have friends that are there, that are working. It affects all of us in the state. School was canceled today, so our SROs returned to the community, and we checked on schools, public buildings, maintained, a vigilant position. And I would ask folks that, if they see something unusual, no matter what, it doesn't need to be an event like this, that they should reach out to us and say something, because it's very important to give us a heads up on those things. Even the smallest thing can be very, very important. And we do have folks, there are folks in every community that have troubles, we just never know where they are in their world, and it's important for people to reach out and say something. We have resources that we can point people to if they need some assistance in grieving or other issues, but again, I would say, be cautious, take care of your loved ones, and just listen to the news. Not all the news is accurate. I've seen a lot of reports today that aren't accurate, so I would be cautious, but I can tell you that everybody's working the best they can to try to put this to a resolution. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
And we also asked Chief to stay, obviously for safety reasons. I also reached out to a few presenters and asked them to keep their presentations shorter, just because I'm a little concerned to have an extended mass gathering meeting. Obviously, we will be respectful to everyone who wants to say something, and we will listen to everyone, but just please be mindful about that as well. Thank you.
So I'd like a motion to approve the October 12th Selectmen's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Alan?
Aye.
Okay, good, we got Alan. And then we had the October 19th executive session meeting at the police station meeting room. I'd like to get those minutes approved as well.
So moved.
Second.
Alan?
Aye.
Aye, and aye. Okay, 5-0. Okay, this is the public forum. Anybody who wants to speak can, but you need to limit your remarks to 4 minutes, and you will be timed. So we're trying to get as many people in who want to talk. So anybody who wants to talk? Yes?
Thank you, Chief.
Can we get that? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to try and do it right this time.
that's it. Well done.
All right. So I zoomed in to the public hearing.
Name and
I'm
address,
sorry,
please. It's all
yeah.
right. It's easy. Yeah.
Laurie Willett, resident. I zoomed into the public hearing last time. And asking for police support to prevent NAUTO from sharing information at a public hearing was unnecessary and very intimidating. And I wonder why it's not in the minutes, and I feel that an apology is necessary, given the nature of a public hearing. The public hearing itself, I think it's important to advertise it on the town website. We have those 3 banners that are very prominent on the upper right-hand side. And before the meeting, the town hall tours were there, which were great, by the way. The folks were really great at those tours. The talk on the aging brain that's coming up at the end of October was there. And even the day of the public hearing, the availability of the Secret Santa applications was there. And I think that is such a missed opportunity to put that information out there, particularly with such division over the town hall itself. I think that was a huge opportunity that was missed there. And just one final thing on the solar and energy efficient piece of it. So that was the question that I had asked at the meeting as to whether or not solar would be there and if it would be, in danger of being cut. At the July 13th meeting, when the plan was rolled out here at the select board meeting, solar was what the engineers and architects said at that meeting was that they would construct the roof and the electrical to be able to accommodate solar, but given it would depend on the price of the project as to whether or not that would be there. And so they positioned it as something down the road. There wasn't any mention of net zero, but there was a lot of mention of net zero at this last meeting, at the public hearing. But even in the flyer that went out today, and the section on will it be green, what it has to say about solar is that we're anticipating solar. There's no real commitment there. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I can address it. Would you like me to address any of the questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Lori? Sorry, I'm going to address a few questions if it's okay. So, thank you so much for your comments, very valuable comments. One, I would say about minutes. So by state law, we have to have minutes, and that's in the statute, and the minutes are kept there for the purpose of the vote. Minutes are not the transcription of the meeting. If you will go to the back, when I did the minutes, I did actually even shorter minutes than Dave's doing. Dave is doing a great job. Kudos to him. We also went this extra mile, and we have videos, so people always welcome to watch videos, which is all on the website, and we're trying to be transparent. So whenever we type minutes, that's, it's not a transcription of the meeting. It's solely discretion of, just what's the importance there. Last meeting was a little turmoilous, but I think it's because, as I said before, people care about this a lot. So a lot of times, the turmoilous time come from the point of care, and Naruto has very good points too, and I don't think he disagrees with us not having town hall. We're just in this discussion about the solar. So to public hearing advertisement, we put on the front page, so any time we post an agenda, everyone who subscribed to the public page front receives the same information. That's why we never posted public hearing on the front page. I will be happy to do so from now on. I will take that on, and I will ask my communications person to put it there if that's what community wants. That's not a problem. It just, the idea was that it was sent before. So that's the only reason. There wasn't anything to hide. And we put it in the newspaper every time for those who cannot access website. And also, so solar, yes, we are working towards making the building accessible for the solar panels or any other type of energy of this kind. I think John is also working with the Climate Action Task Force because it's very important for them, and they came a little further down the road to address this too. We are looking into grants, and that's why we are saying, it might not come from this bond, it might come from a grant, but it is absolutely something we are looking into. So, and that's what, I don't know if board wants to add something.
Yeah, I do. When we're talking about solar, our initial thrust was to design it so that it'd be on the roof. And we're still talking about that. That only gives us 26% of the electrical use, only covers 26% of the electrical use in the building. So we've talked about other things as well, so that we can reduce our footprint, we can reduce the cost of electricity, we can air conditioning and so forth. We've talked about industrial splits and so forth, so that we do not have to use fuel oil. So that is it's all in the discussions we've always had, but we don't have a final plan whether it's going to be, what it's going to be. That will be done in the final design, and the money is included in the estimate of the total project. The only thing that we want to do, that what Yanina just alluded to, is we want to see if we can receive grants, some grants somewhere as well, to help the taxpayer and to help us, all of us. So that's where it's going. We have not ignored it. We just don't have the final plan for what we're going to do. We don't know yet. So, and that's my answer. So is there anybody else who has a comment? Oh, let me address one other thing. You said I should apologize, and I won't. I had a discussion with him before the meeting, and I said, you may not put anything up that is political in nature. And he said, yes, I won't do it. And I said, I agree. And then he took the two charts, and I think he put them out back, and somehow they showed up over here. And so when he put them up, he got a little bit testy, and on the top of it, it said, vote no, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I said, wait a minute, you agreed. This is not a political meeting. And so when he starts doing this and this, I say, hey, I'm going to err on the way a lot of meetings have been going in a lot of towns, whether it's RSUs, whether it's town halls or whatever. I'm going to err on the side of safety. And that's why I said, hey, listen, it looks to me like this person wasn't going to follow what we had asked and what we had agreed to. So that's what I said. So nobody came and grabbed him. Nobody did anything. All they did was stand in the door, and he calmed down. So I'll err every time on the question of safety. I had people here. That's the way I'm going to do it. So I don't apologize at all. So, next. I'm not going to argue with you.
No, I don't want to argue. I just want to say, I don't think that, I just think
Okay, I'm not.
saying,
Go ahead.
just saying that and letting it go and not asking for the police officer, I think that was the thing. I don't.
He didn't let
don't
it go.
But, placing
Okay,
and distributing something in a public hearing, I just don't think it rises to that.
okay, thank you. Anybody else? No?
Mr. Bourbon. Mr. Bourbon, yeah.
Wait,
Yeah, I see.
got you now, buddy. No, I want to know how your neck is.
Wayne Burbank from Goose Rocks. I'll keep this short, although this is all
You got
filled
4
up.
minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Do what you want.
Okay, the town hall. I had a tour of the town hall last week with Mr. Dykstra.
Yeah.
And do we need a new town hall? Yes, we do. And I was quite amazed at what they're lacking there, I guess you'd say. And the employees are working under hard conditions and everything. Do we need the one proposed? I don't think we do. And I've talked to a lot of people that don't think we do. And for instance, I'm comparing Arundel with Kennebunkport. Arundel has 700 more residents than Kennebunkport, roughly.
In January.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
They built a very nice town hall a couple of years ago for a total of 2.9 million, roughly, including solar for the town hall and the fire station and their traffic lights and everything. They got a deal on the solar. Supposedly it was $230,000. They got it from Mr. Inouye for $115,000. Great deal. I doubt Kennebunkport's going to get a deal like that. But anyway, they already had the land, as Kennebunkport does. They have a 104-seat auditorium, as Kennebunkport is planning. And the big difference is they have 7,000 plus or minus square feet. You're proposing 12,000 plus or minus square feet. I don't know that we need all that room, but anyway, I think it's a little overkill. And with fewer than 700 residents, and a lot of them only here 4 to 6 months of the year, I think the 8.8 million proposed doesn't even include solar, does it?
Yes, it does.
See, I was told the last time I was
Well,
here
you
it doesn't.
know, I know, that's how things get
I
around.
know, well, you hear what you want to hear, right?
Yeah.
I totally agree that we should have solar. I've talked to many people, and they say we should not do it without solar, but anyway, there's been a lot of time put into this project by a lot of people in the last couple of years, and I commend them for their time and expertise. Many of the residents I've talked to think that we should get offers on selling the existing town hall, talk to developers and stuff, and see if there's anybody even remotely interested in it. Plus the land, the pieces of land they're talking about, the McCabe property and so forth. And get an idea of how much we could get for those. Maybe nobody's interested in them. And then aggressively do fundraising. I mean, aggressively. Okay?
He's looking at me for
You've
that.
already raised $500,000, you didn't even try.
Of course we tried.
I disagree with putting solar panels on the roof. I mean, even if they, well, no, I'm sorry. On the parking lot. I disagree with putting solar panels on the parking lot. To me, it would be unsightly and just impractical, with parking underneath those things and where you're gonna push the snow, you gotta have supports for the panels and so forth. I just don't see it. I've never seen any anywhere, it doesn't mean there aren't any. I think we need to explore things before committing to a potential 8.8 million expense. And that's including along with the 14 million village parcel, which is not paid for, we're still paying for that. If the Rundle was 14,000 square feet, it would still be way less than what we're figuring,
At the old prices.
At the old prices.
at the old prices, yeah.
At the old prices.
That's true.
I myself and others think we should get more definite pricing and get the price down before we potentially agree on 8.8
Okay,
million.
thanks, Wayne. How's your neck? You didn't tell me how your neck was. Is it going in the right direction?
Just-
Okay.
So,
Just a quick response. The comparison of the populations is a little difficult. We have up to 12,000 people living in this town for at least 2 months, close to 3. We have to have a government that is able to support at least a 10,000 level population in terms of the amount of building permits, the things that come in. We have 2 working harbors at Kennebunkport. How many restaurants and hotels do you know of in Arundel? You can count them, and you need all your hands many times over in Kennebunkport. We are a very different town. I'm thrilled for Arundel. When prices were half of what they are now, they got a town hall that was reasonable for their needs, although now they're tight. They wanted 9,000, they got down to 7,000, that's all they could get, and now they're tight on space. So we are proposing a town hall which is sized for the town that we are, not the town that Arundel is. And we are preparing for a 20 to 50-year future for that building, which I believe is the responsible thing to do. So the comparisons that keep coming up with Arundel, I don't want to say disingenuous, but it comes to mind. They are apples and orangutans. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a response too for one of Wayne's questions. So, Mr. Burbank, I think we talked about the current town hall, and Lori and the team did go out to get an assessment of what that property would yield. And that's, the $1 million takes into account what a developer would have to do for a tear down of the site. So I think that property was due diligence to the level needed. I think what you heard from us in the past and what's written on the financial letter to go in with the warrant is that the other properties were assessed, not even assessed, but we came forward with low amounts, thinking that we wanted to undercommit to the town versus overcommit, and then achieve more. But I think the current town hall, though, had a level of due diligence done around it for the 1 million.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Tracy?
Hi, Tracy O'Rourke, Town Clerk. I just wanted to remind everybody that next Thursday, November 2nd, is the last day to request an absentee ballot for November. And with that in mind, the clerk's office will be open until 7 p.m. to issue ballots, accept ballots, as well as any voter registration changes or new registrations. So I encourage everyone, especially if you're registering to vote, to do it beforehand so you don't have to wait in line twice on Election Day. So that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Melinda Anderson, local resident. I want to first address Nalto and his character. And Nalto is a neighbor of mine. He is a businessman. I don't think it represents him well to say that he was a threat to the community in any way, He may have been nervous. It's nervous to come up here. He may have been jittery, but I can speak to a conversation I had with him. He had no idea that you had asked the police to step forward. He had no idea.
Well,
He,
it's announced.
I have 4 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
It wasn't until I told him that Mary Beth asked the police officer to stand down, and he was floored. Floored. And he has told me that people have treated him this way as a minority. So you're calling safety, and I'm telling you the truth, the conversation I had with him. And I was floored. The board is supposed to help us, and he was trying to help us. He's not in business anymore for solar. He's retired. But he was trying to help us, and he made a mistake by leaving that on the top. He recognizes that. I'm speaking for him. He recognized that. I don't know that you're going to get him to come in here again because of that. He wasn't jittery in a way that anybody was ever at risk.
Like, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I saw you kept, is the 4 minutes up? Is the 4 minutes up? I mean, really, the jittery one, I felt was you.
Yeah, I will always err on the side of safety, always. And-
Safety or ego? Because
I
he
have
was
no
trying
ego.
to share information, just genuinely. He's passionate about solar. And we are. I really would like a building that has solar, not just spoke of, and maybe in a grant going forward. Grants still cost us money, and our deficit, as the federal deficit, is huge. So to think that we're just going to grab money that's going to cost no one, it's not going to cost anybody anything, it will. It'll cost me still something. So I just need to defend NALTO because that was wrong, and you should apologize. In my opinion, you should apologize. On that, I also want to mention that it should have been corrected when there was a man that spoke up and said he couldn't find the parcel that was being sold as the McCabe parcel. He looked, he couldn't find it. There was an error in the,
There was.
yes.
We corrected it.
But you could have corrected him so he understood and you could corrected it immediately.
I don't even know what you're referring to right now.
It's the lot 009-004-050.
Yeah.
That was said that it was just a typographical error, but that's a huge one. And then David James, the KRA, has a newsletter, and he put in there that it was just a date. And he's the one that tried to not allow that, or recommended in the budget meeting that that shouldn't be shared, what piece would be sold. So I think there is a little bit to apologize for.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to see your face.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to see yours,
No, it
too.
is. I mean, all we do is
Yeah.
keep the voice.
I
Good to see you.
would like just to answer to one point that I honestly, from my perspective, don't believe is fair. You saying that the attitude towards Naruto was as to minority. Well, I understand the whole immigrant part. I'm myself an immigrant. The board was nothing but kind to me. I know no one here made it all by myself, came here. I'm from Ukraine, who doesn't know? Have an accent myself, and, you know, we can argue on many points about minority, but I think I'm a minority, and I'm sorry, but that wasn't the case. And you can speak from your perspective. I'm just speaking from my perspective. You know, we all speak from our points. I'm just saying from minority, myself being a woman in this country, working for the town of Kennebunkport, I was appointed as interim town manager by this board, whom you're saying is unfair to minorities. So I do think, Melinda, that your points are valuable about you know, about solar, and those are points where we meet. And I think it's very interesting that we argue about the same points from the same end, while we both agree on them. So I think that's valuable, and we absolutely agree on that. And yeah, I think that's, and I apologize, and Tracy apologized for the mistake. It was a simple mistake on the, you know, on the warrant. We're all humans, we all make mistakes. Absolutely was important, we addressed it, Tracy presented it. So if anyone still needs to hear, we are sorry that that mistake happened, we are. So
It
that's all.
wasn't presented as a lot number. It was presented as a date and a small error.
Yeah, so
That's a
Dave,
big error.
I'm sorry.
And I do want to say, it wasn't me that was bringing up the minority. I'm bringing it up for NALTO.
Yeah,
NALTO is the one that spoke of that.
Yeah, and that's fair, and
So-
he welcome to speak for himself too. I'm speaking for myself, so I'm just addressing the minority part because I'm also a minority here.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just want to say that I stand with the board because they appointed me and I'm a minority too.
So will anybody be correcting David James?
Well, David James does not work for us. He is a volunteer organization who performs a very good service in the community. We do not, he is not the minutes person. He is not a spokesperson for us. He makes a newsletter for an organization that has, I don't know, 250 members. So the answer is no, we're not going to correct him.
Lori, the town manager, used to correct him.
I think in the past we had, Lori had spoken to this because we had this issue a month or two ago, and she spoke at one of our select board meetings, reminding everybody what Mike just said. And I think it is important to clarify this and make sure that people hear this, is that, to get the town meeting minutes, you go to the town website. And like Mike said, David James has a group of people that he provides a service for. The town does not, we do not recognize, we do not review his minutes, we do not correct his comments. That is with what he does with his group. But it's important for the townspeople to make sure that they go to the town website and pull the minutes of the meeting, that you hear every meeting, the Board of Selectmen, go through and approve the meetings, and we'll make corrections, as John did last week, to one of our minutes. So that's the record. That's very clear. That is the records of the meetings of the minutes.
I just know at one of the meetings that we had in the town manager's office that was a small meeting, few of us there, David James' knee was tapped and said he would take really good minutes. So notes.
Okay.
That is what happened. I saw it myself.
Well, I think I was at that meeting as well. I didn't want to take minutes.
Yeah.
Lori couldn't take minutes. He was an individual there at the meeting, and he volunteered to take the minutes for that meeting.
Yeah.
Linda, what
I
does that
think
have to do
Yanina
with?
came in to try and take the minutes.
Yeah, I was there, and that was a joke. So he's doing his minutes for the KRA.
I'm just
and
saying,
I took the minutes.
It's kind of it's a
town.
point to be made that there's inaccuracies that should be really clear.
I will be happy to go through, ever since I came, through every minute on our website and see if any posted have Dave James' name. I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to make one more comment, just because we have heard this a couple times this evening and in past meetings. And I do think, what Mike has made his point in terms of his era of safety and how he feels personally. I think we have heard from residents in terms of, how they felt during the meeting, how Mr. Nalto felt in the meeting. I was uneasy during the meeting. So I think what we should all sit back, and how Yanina opened up the discussion this evening, is we should all sit back and think about what we're talking about right now. And I think it's good that we're having this conversation. I think it's good that we're listening to each other. And I think the hopes is, as we continue to have these meetings and get into subjects that maybe are not so emotionally charged as maybe the current warrants coming up, that we'll use this time to even have better communications at these meetings and better discussions. But I think we should give credit where credit is due this evening, to you coming forward, to other comments, and then to us listening to each other. So I thank you for coming.
I appreciate that.
David James is attending via Zoom and has his hand raised. Shall we speak? Yes. Dave? Dave?
All right, now can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Comment to Melinda. Number one, if you were to look at the Kennebunkport Residents Association KRA newsletter, and this is, I'm looking at the September 30th and also the October 14th one. The very first sentence in the newsletter says, "The information contained in the KRA newsletter represents the editor's understanding of events transpiring at the meeting is covered and should not be confused with official minutes of a town board or committee." That's comment number one. Comment number two, I got the KRA Residents newsletter for October 14th. And question number 4, which is included there, says School Street property, which is the McKay property. And the first sentence reads, "To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell town-owned property on School Street, 8 parcel property to Parsons Field, map number 009-004-050. And that says clearly map number. Doesn't say anything about any date. Thank you.
No, we're done. We're done. Do you want to reply to that? Is that what you want to do?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. James, this is Melinda. In the bottom, in your reauthorization of the town warrant, in the very end, you wrote that Tracy O'Rourke explained that although the town warrant had been previously approved by the select board, one of the dates in that document was incorrect. A date is not a map and lot number. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody in the audience? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Approve the following liquor licenses. We have 4.
Lost Fire, yeah.
Lost Fire,
And
first one.
1802 bed, yeah. Do we need to do them individually, or can we?
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
need to do those individually. So we have Lost Fire, it's a renewal of their license.
You want a motion?
Motion.
Yeah, I move that we renew the license for the Lost Fire on 62 Mills Road.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Alan?
Alan? Alan?
Aye.
Oh,
Okay, that's 4-0. And then the last one is, or the next one is the 1802 house
Yep.
on Lock Street, Juliana Atchison.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the renewal for the Hamasa LLC, DBA 1802 Bed and Breakfast on 15 Lock Street.
Do I have a second?
Second. Discussion.
Alan, a discussion?
Aye.
Discussion?
Yeah, sir.
Aye.
Okay, aye. 4-0. Okay, all passed. Okay, next we have the,
Although I think it's important to note, if I may, that these have been reviewed by the town and found to be in order.
That's correct.
It sounds like we're going through it awfully quick, but that's because we're depending on people who have looked at these and passed mustard on them.
Well, they're both renewal license, and
both were
Indeed.
twice
we
set.
did read through all the prep documents.
That's correct. The department directors have to approve it beforehand. So if they have questions, they ask beforehand. And I believe we start with police chief, and then we go from there.
Okay,
You.
you want to introduce
Yeah.
sidewalk?
So the next item is sidewalk project update, and I would let Chris Simeoni talk a little bit about it. But the idea behind the project is the community felt a need to evaluate the state of our sidewalks and walkways. So we decided to partner with UNE, and we got a wonderful intern, and Chris can introduce the project.
Yeah, so moving forward, at least when I changed over to Public Works 5 years ago, I was kind of surprised at the amount of information that we have here in town that's not recorded in any type of an electronic format. So when I started, we had as-built plans for all the wastewater infrastructure, but we didn't have that housed anywhere. It was housed in a file drawer cabinet. And those plans had been used so many times that, they were starting to deteriorate and fall apart. So we moved forward and we put those in a GIS layer. And you know, here in town, we have a lot of employees that have been here for a long time and a lot of institutional knowledge that we kind of really weren't taking advantage of and trying to capture that information and house it somewhere. So this was another thing that we had looked at, you know, and moving forward, certainly we all know we have the sidewalks in town, but we were more interested in trying to find out and kind of, you know, detail the length of the sidewalk, the material that the sidewalk was made out of, the condition of the sidewalk. The intent of this is, you know, as we move forward, to use this for capital planning, you know, which sidewalks do we need to look at first, and so on. But along with that, you know, everybody's familiar, we have, you know, stormwater infrastructure here in town as well. A lot of that stormwater infrastructure resides at the edge of a sidewalk. I can't tell you how many times we've been called to go down and look at a drainage issue, and, you know, this drainage issue has been put in, I mean, the drainage had been put in long before a lot of the employees that are currently working here now ever started. So we're trying to capture that information now so that we can actually have, you know, a stormwater infrastructure map layer on GIS as well, so that whoever comes after us will have something to refer to. So we kind of wanted to take this project on. As Yanina said, we kind of partnered with UNE to find an intern for that. We were very lucky to get Abby. Abby's proficient in GIS. She's an environmental science major. So we move forward with her, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk about the work she did.
So hi, I'm Abby O'Hearn. I'm a senior at the University of New England. I'm an environmental science major with a minor in geographic information systems, or GIS. So what I did throughout this past semester is I took my phone, which I have an app on it, and I walked every single sidewalk in the town of Kennebunkport. And not only did I record each individual segment, I recorded the sidewalk type, so it was either made out of concrete or asphalt, as well as the granite type. I also took the general condition on a scale of 1, 2, and 3. 1 was poor, 2 was fair, and 3 was good. And I also took, this is a map of all the sidewalks in Kennebunkport, actually. I also took whether or not there was a warning pad at any of the wheelchair ramps, and if there were wheelchair ramps going onto the roads. So I have the 3 sections. I have the left part, which is kind of the main Kennebunkport. I zoomed in towards Dock Square because the sidewalks can get a little close and cluttered around there. I also have Goose Rocks Beach and Cape Porpoise. So this is just a layer that anybody in the future can use for any sort of, you know, project that they want. And then on the next slide too, I also took the locations of all the catch basins and the crosswalks. So again, I zoomed in at the 3 areas. So it's just really good information for all of us to have, especially for the catch basins. It's nice to know like where the water drains into, and, you know, the department can do what they want with that in the future. But it was just, you know, they need a layer for it that, you know, anybody can use in the future. But yeah. This was my total findings from the survey. I have a huge spreadsheet of everything, and I have a pivot table in that. So at each segment of the sidewalks, I have a street name with it, and I have whether or not there is a warning pad or a handicap ramp. And I also have the amount of miles, the amount of distance in miles that each type of sidewalk has in that sort of condition. So asphalt's the only one that really needs to be replaced right away, but this is going to be used for the future in terms of like budget planning and what needs to be replaced first and foremost.
Just for information, where is that asphalt sidewalk, do you know?
I have I don't know off the top of my head, but I do have it in a spreadsheet, yeah.
Okay.
So I have it all labeled out and what segments do have specific parts that do need to be fixed.
Yeah.
How did you spatially define the segments?
The segments, I just kind of took it off the top of my head. If I noticed that a segment was particularly worse than the one I just came off of, that's when I started a new one.
But what is so it's breaking where the quality broke then?
Yes.
So the segments are by quality?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we may need to get it finer because some may change a different quality, you know, within a segment now it's gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So.
yep. Cool.
Very nice.
Very nice.
So overall, how do you rate our sidewalks?
Pretty good. I mean,
I'm looking at it, it looks like.
most of them are pretty much in the
Red,
threes.
a little yellow.
Sometimes I did go a little less generous just because maybe this is not going to be used for the future or, give it a few years. So if there's an area that was kind of on the line of 2 or 3, I put it in the worser condition.
And where's that good wood sidewalk?
It was off of Ocean Ave. It was farther down there.
Far out. There's a little piece of wood then that
Yeah,
makes a
it was kind
sidewalk?
of strange, but
That's cool.
yeah.
I'm sorry, John, did you just say far out?
Farm out, peach.
Arby, thank you so much for your work. This was
Yes,
so
thank
much
you.
work, and
thank you.
it's incredible. Thank you.
I come by that naturally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. The next one is the Boswain Lane Public Street Proposal. You want to read that? Or you want me to? Okay, so on behalf of the residents of Boswain Lane, Charles Tremblay submitted a request to speak to the Select Board about turning Boswain Lane into a public street. It does not meet the policy criteria, it does not lead to a public facility, does not connect to the public roads. These are the 3 tests I'm reading. And so I've asked Mary Beth and John to give us a little synopsis of where we stand on this.
Before you, that second point you made about it not connecting to a public road, it actually, there is a road that it connects to it. So, and that, in fact, is in Chris'
I'm not
report.
I'm not through. Would you wait till please wait till we describe what we're gonna do and then talk about it? Thank you. And I'll get right back to you. But we're not, this was not a judgment. This was, I'm trying to find out what we're talking about here. And so that I can explain to everybody here what the issues are, okay? And then we'll get to you. So Mary Beth?
Yeah, so Charles will take you through what we did, and then we can open it up for feedback from you guys. So just so you know, from everything you submitted in, from the residents of Boatswain Lane, John, myself, Yanina, Warner, and Chris, and Michelle from Finance have been looking at various aspects of this. We've met several times over the last couple weeks to go through everything. So I think before we get to judgment, I think it's, or, what we found, we want to at least lay the groundwork for everybody in the room and listening in terms of how Kennebunkport determines whether or not a piece of property or a road becomes public. And this differs from town to town and state to state. So I think it's important to start with the groundwork. So there's, in Kennebunkport, from the time that this was issued in 2003, there's actually a 4-step process, right? So 1, the planning board goes through and approves that application for whether or not a road is going to become public, and then sets forth requirements, and then maybe gives some things which the Boatswain Lane Road had gone through with the 2 developers, Leon Blood and David Hughes. And, we have that in the documents here. The second one is the municipality's officers actually approve the road after things have been done, and that moves it further down the game board. Then the third step is it comes to the select board. The select board reviews all that, and the select board makes a recommendation whether or not it goes to warrant, which then goes to the voters of the town which is the 4th one, on whether or not the town agrees that this road should be a public road. So that is Kennebunkport's end-to-end process. It's been like that since the submission of Boatswain Lane in 2003. It remains like that with one nuance, which was ordinance change in 2018, which I'll get to in a second. So what we did first is we sat down with the group that I mentioned, and we went through the town records, the stuff that the Boatswain Lane residents had submitted to us, which matched our town records, and also anything else we could find. We looked at the maps, we pulled deeds of surrounding lands to look at right-of-ways, private roads, et cetera, et cetera. So what we were looking for was there any evidence of that something was direct that we were missing, Or was there evidence that this went to step 3, which was the select board approval process, which is really what we were looking for in that time. And so we didn't find anything that would say that this moved beyond that first planning board approval step. So we didn't find anything relevant that moved you further down, Boatswain Lane, further down that game board. So then we, in parallel to that, though, we had Chris Simonelli, because we didn't know what we were going to find. So we had Chris come to Boatswain Lane. He went out and did a review, and in the published reports for today is a front-to-back memo from Chris in terms of, walking the road, looking at the condition of the road and what would have to be done to the road to bring it, or would have to be considered by the town before we took it over. So we just wanted to make sure that we were turning every rock over and we were doing due diligence in this process. So that's the front end of what happened. So we couldn't find anything that would lead us to an approval of Boatswain Lane from that piece of work. So on that phrase, we ended that piece. Then we looked at 2018. So what happened is in 2018, again, on top of that 4-step process, the town had an ordinance approved which has the 3 requirements that that Mike just read. Leads to a public facility, road connects to another street or thoroughfare, or other public benefits. So we looked at that ordinance then to say, okay, let's start from scratch, right? Boatswain Lane's coming forward. Let's look at it from a 2023 perspective, and from the ordinance, could we pass it per the ordinance? And so we did due diligence for each point and really debated each point, and that's when we looked at maps, because we read your argument for leads to, connects to another public benefit, and so we looked into the conservation trust. They'd have to pass through private property, so we couldn't connect the dots that would provide a yes vote for the 2018 ordinance. And then we also looked at the other stuff that the residents submitted through you for Boatswain Lane, some of the things about the financial, the check given back for the final coat. And we had a discussion with Chris. We had a discussion that's led down as a path with Janina looking through the finance to see if there was any records in the town that would have given us that something, stated clearly that we could go back and say, aha, we've got it. And nothing of that was found. And so so John, correct me, or if you have a different view, but Mike, our recommendation from that due diligence work is that we couldn't find anything that would state that we should go forward. And the last thing we looked at to make sure that we couldn't provide any relief to the Boatswain Lanes residents was, what did the town do after passing the 2018 ordinance? And there was one case where Reed Lane was actually submitted into step 1 of the process, and then the ordinance was passed. And what the Board of Selected to Reed Lane at that time is they did not allow them to go public. They had to stay a private road. So the board in that ruling set a very hard line precedent, basically drew that red line in the sand that said 2018 and beyond, you got to meet these 3. There's no grandfathering, and so that's the case. And so if we would be setting a completely different precedence if we tried to reopen this or allowed Boatswain Lane to go public after the amount of time after the ordinance. And we understand the comments in terms of, hey, you weren't notified, but then in discussing that, it's a 20-year cycle or 20-year between the start of Boatswain Lane development to now when we're sitting here talking about the road going from private to public. And I think at some point when John and I were talking with Janina, there's got to be, it's not the town's responsibility during that time. So I think John, if you have anything else to say,
I
or?
think that's really the key, is that, we did pass step one, but the step two is something that needs to be submitted, and when it was, it's now been submitted in 2023. Too much time has passed.
Do I get to speak now? So because I want to
Yes.
answer that specific question. So using their own road acceptance policy, section 2 on road acceptance procedure, point E, since once a road is approved by the planning board, it may be scheduled for a town acceptance vote after it is fully constructed and 75% of the lots within the subdivision have been constructed. That's only happened in 2019. So using your own acceptance policy, that's really only 2019. So by using the policy now that you've adopted in 2018, if that's the rules we're using, then we could only then bring this to the board as of when that 75% occurred, which is actually 2019 or 2020.
It's beyond the date.
It's beyond the date.
Where on your road acceptance policy says that there's a date, there's an expiration date to this?
No, I think what they're referring to is 2018 ordinance.
The ordinance.
And I think that's the
Beyond the
sticky-
ordinance, it's beyond when
Yeah.
you're,
So, okay, that's fine. So listen, again, it's evident that the town has no appetite to take on a public road. Now, that's very clear, but there's a couple things. One of them, again, using the road acceptance policy, connecting to another street, that statement initially was incorrect because it's in Chris Simeone's own report that says that Cape Woods Road is a road that connects Boatson to Mills Road.
It's not a public road.
It doesn't say that in your,
yeah, it's got to be a public road.
It's the intent.
where, it doesn't say that in your road acceptance policy. It says it needs to connect to a road. It doesn't say a public road. It doesn't.
Yeah, I know, and so then we talked through that when we went through points A, B, and C, and we looked at, that's when we looked at the surrounding areas, and we looked at 2 past roads that were declined.
Right.
And so that's where it's, even though it's not saying public, it's inferred, and those were basically part of the points of being made. And really what happened in the history, when you say the town has no appetite for public roads, and talking with Chris and Warner, specifically Warner, during this meeting, this is when cul-de-sacs started to take prevalence in the town. And, and then it took up until 2018 to make this ordinance change. And if you look at the way the ordinance is written, it's really written against cul-de-sacs, if you want to get down to the point. And for everything that then Chris went into, from the public works standpoint, there's issues into those cul-de-sacs, cleaning the roads, getting the snow out of there, yada, et cetera. So I took a long time walking through this because I want the residents of Boatswain Lane to understand that we literally sat and pressure test this, and we tried to find a way to see if this could work. And we did argumentative points
did.
back and forth, between John and I, and then Chris and
All of us.
Warner.
Yeah.
And so we tried to see, but I think the problem from the problem for the Boatswain Lane residents is the ruling on Reed Lane. And that was right at that time, and that's, for me, that was the crux because it set precedents. And now you're asking us to go against a prior select board ruling, and that,
There have been other roads that have been denied as well for these same reasons.
So the other point you had made is that you found no evidence that the town returned the funds that were in escrow to the developer.
no, there was, so we know that the town returned the funds. The problem we had was, what we were looking for was, what we tried to prove with the returning of the funds was in that a way, did the town, by returning those funds, in some way move you from step one to step something else? And what we found out is through the letters and stuff and the reviews is that there was $15,000 held in escrow. It was 10,000 for a top coat, the sewers had to be raised up, and then money had been taken out of that escrow, probably for, as Warner said, for permits or whatever that was being issued. Who knows, because that was the financial due diligence that we tried to find, and we couldn't find where those funds went to.
Well, it does say a remaining balance, so that implies
And the
that that was-
remaining
yeah.
balance
Had
was
been drawn
returned,
down.
right. And the remaining balance was drawn down, and the remaining balance was returned to Mr.
Without confirming that the developer did what they said they would do in those letters to the town manager at the time. So the developer committed to doing the final paving, raising the storm drains, everything they needed to do, and that was why they were seeking the reduction in the letter of credit from the bank, and they got the estimates to do that. So that's what they were planning to do, and then again, everything goes dark, because I've gone through all the files myself. There's nothing in there, but basically a year later, all of a sudden, they're getting a check cut back to them for the remaining escrow amount of money, and they walk away from it.
But what we were looking for was how to connect those dots.
Yeah.
So when the town gave back the money, was there anything to connect those dots that says that the town thought that the road was repaved? Actually, the money that the town gave back from escrow no longer covered the road paving and the sewer raising. So by giving back the money, the town did not recognize that that was completed. The town gave back an escrow, and we could not find evidence. And again, that was the records, trying to dig through. We could not find what was the precedent for returning the funds.
Any support.
And there was nothing that said that the road was, the final coat was completed. So we do not know, and that is.
That's what I'm saying, the
yeah.
road was not. So they had done an inspection of it, and that's what the developer was saying, is that they know they have to do this, and they do plan to do it, and then nothing happens. So again, me just trying to be a bit logical about this is, if I'm the town and the developer wants to get their money back, isn't there a control step that says, okay, did you do what you're supposed to do in terms of everything that you've committed to the town?
I wish there were some more data in the files that would explain why the money was returned. There is absolutely
So
nothing.
the answer is no.
Yeah.
There was
No.
not a control step on it, so the money was returned to the developers without
I don't
ensuring that
know
they
that
did
there
what they
wasn't-
committed to do.
We don't know that there was.
We don't know that there wasn't, but it certainly, if it was definitely earmarked for top coating, and the top coating wasn't done, then clearly somebody messed up. I'm with you. It's unfortunate.
But then we took that and played the other side, Charles, in terms of what does that mean, if the top coat's done or not. It didn't advance.
How does
It-
it, so
it
how
didn't-
does that affect?
So the money going back and stuff doesn't move you further down the game board in terms of the town acceptance.
Right,
It was a discussion of, okay, the top coat money, so does that mean Mr. Hughes and Mr. Blood, now it's, the onus is on them to finish their top coat, per their financing, not any money that's held in escrow.
Anything from other neighbors that want to speak to it? Don?
Yeah, hi. My name is Don Colburn. I happen to live in Bozeman. I'm also a builder in town, and I happen to be the major developer of Reed Lane. I worked directly with the investor there, and we put that whole thing together. We're proud of what happened there. But it's my understanding that Reed Lane is now taken over by the town. The neighbors that I built homes from tell me the town plows that road. That's the information I got from my
Yeah, so
friends.
you are correct in
Okay.
terms, so what happened is, since Reed Lane came in on this cusp of changing, and you guys came in on 2017 and 2018, the new ordinance was put in, you guys came back and said, hey, come on, guys, what are you doing? And the town came back and said, okay, what can we do for you residents? We're not going to turn this to a public road, but we will maintain and plow. We will plow.
Okay.
And that's
Not
what
maintain.
Chris, and not maintain. And really what happens if, what Chris has shared with us is because we actually have to go in from the town perspective with a smaller plow. So this is, again, something that the town recognized that Reed Lane got caught on this changeover or this new ordinance, and the town wanted to give something. So we tried very hard to see, could we give you anything in Bozeman Lane?
Okay, no, I believe this is a
And
sincere
that's
effort.
why we were talking about the plowing. Last time there was questions, John and I were listening. We talked with Chris to say what would that would look like. So we tried to understand, is there anything that we could soften the blow, which is essentially what happened with Reed Lane by the ability to plow that for them.
I believe there's been a sincere effort to look at this thoroughly and look at everything. I do believe that. It's a little puzzling on my end because, like I said, I was involved with Reed Lane for a number of years, and I know that infrastructure, and I know my neighborhood too, and I know that where I live, the roads are wider, the curbs are better, the cul-de-sac is better. I know that neighborhood because I went in there up and down for 5 years. You can't really get 2 cars through at the same time. It's tough. And I also know the town is plowing it. So to me, that's the town took it over. Maybe I'm wrong, but
No, we
that's
did
kind of
not.
how it looks like it.
We
No?
did not. We
We never
plowed.
took it
No,
We
I could be
we did
wrong,
not- we
correct,
did-
but I'm just saying how
Well, I'm
it
saying,
looks.
yet you are, it is a private road
Okay.
that the
But you
town
you're-
agreed
To plow.
All right, so you're plowing a private
As,
road.
as a,
Exactly.
we're plowing
Okay.
a,
All
we're
right.
plowing
I'm
a
just trying to say.
private road as a, soften the blow for them being caught up in the transition from 2017 to
Just
the new
7
ordinance.
months. It was
Now,
only a
now,
few months.
now another point that's related to the neighborhood, which is kind of hard for all us neighbors to absorb and digest, I should say, is that even though I'm hearing their records have gone dark, the fact of the matter is there was money held in escrow that was supposed to go to Top Coat. So it would help us if we, and I'm not asking for the money, I'm just saying it would help us if that money was still available. If we're going to bear the expense of top coating, it'd kind of nice to have that money that was supposed to be earmarked for the developers. I know both Leon and Dave. If that money that was earmarked for top coat was at least for the boatswain neighborhoods, boats and neighborhoods to use towards the exponential, it's expensive. It's, you know, it's a lot different than that. So that money, whatever it is, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, I feel rightfully belongs to the boatswain neighborhood. That's what I feel. And the town made the decision to give it back to the developers, which, quite frankly, respectfully, I think was a wrong decision.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
we talked through that too. So John just asked me, was that earmarked for the top
It
coat?
just wasn't clear.
And so it was, when I read through, it was, to me, it was inferred because there was the $10,000 that was for the top coat. There was the discussion that we had to raise the sewers, so 15,000 should cover it.
Yeah.
And then there was the note from the code enforcement officer at the time saying we're okay to to go to issue line of or to request just a line of credit get reduced to 15,000. But then there was a drawdown from something, and that's where we could not find the financial records of what the drawdown was from to get you from 15 to 6. Now,
But-
to your point in terms of, it would be nice to have that $6,000 for the top coat.
Sure.
We talked about this too, and Mr. Blood and Mr. Hughes, still own the road.
Right.
And it's not the town's business, because at the time, the town gave back the money to the people whose account was held in escrow. So the town was doing, because it wasn't a resident-owned road,
Right.
so the money went back to the people that own the road.
But they were supposed to top coat the road, and they didn't. And the
Right.
contingency to get the money back was to finish the subdivision, which they didn't. So that's where we have a little bit of a,
And I think that's
issue.
something that we talked about, and that's something that we couldn't find, or there's no room for the town in that discussion. We feel that's a discussion between the residents and Mr. Hughes and Mr. Blood, in terms of, hey, guys, all the houses, to Charles' point, all the houses are built. You owe us top coat, and top coat includes raising those sewers, as in, as the sewers, as when we talked with Chris and you read through his report, you could take Chris's report and take that to Mr. Blood and Mr. Hughes and say, hey, here's what the town thinks would have to be done. And, I would assume Mr. Hughes and Mr. Blood still own the road. I would assume that they would follow through on their original agreement with.
no, that's our work to do now, but we feel like, we kind of feel like the town, even though it was people long before you guys, was back 20 years ago, we just feel like we're let down. That's just how we feel, and it's just what it is.
I want to ask you a question. They won't, because I've spoken to them, they will not do it, because they look at it as they've washed their hands of it. They said they're done, they put the money towards it, they've sold the lots, they are not doing anything else. They'd love it for us to take the street from them, because they're still paying for the insurance and they're still paying for the fire hydrant. So they won't, but again, there's in black and white, I mean, you have the letters in terms of when it was for, this letter dated to the town manager of October 15 from Leon Blood, basically saying that the remaining funds are to apply the finished coat. It states it clearly what's in it. That's what they got the estimate for. They didn't do it because at that point, they had already had their money, they were tired of, they didn't want to throw any more money at it. They walked away from it because they said everything happened then with the financial crisis and everything else. So we get it, but I just think we're asking for some help because while our recourse with developers would be ideal, what would be ideal as well is to get some help from the town because the town still all uses these two gentlemen in their businesses as surveyors. So you continue to give them business. We're asking maybe for some leverage there that says, listen, you make it right by the Bosun Lane residents, we'll continue to then give you business to the town. But it feels like we have zero leverage and recourse at this point. That's why we're asking for this.
That's a different ask. It's a different ask, so that's,
Does it, I mean, would you feel comfortable in talking to Leon or David Hughes and just saying, hey, guys,
Yeah.
yeah,
that's,
I don't
well,
think, but it's a different ask. It's not gonna change we can't
No.
take over the road.
we're not
That's
taking
done.
over the road, but,
But it's a
so
different
let me just clarify, Mr. Colburn, so your last point was, or Charles' point was, you were looking for some leverage from the town. So if we sat down with Mr. Blood and Mr. Hughes and you guys and just went through what we found and why we're not going to take this to a public, I think we'd be willing to sit in a room. I mean, we're not going to make it a public road, but we're willing to go through the history. We know, as we said, we tried to find something to ease the blow, but we couldn't find anything.
Okay, well, I consider that an incredibly generous gesture, which I welcome, so, we'll just, thank you for,
So let's give that a shot then.
okay. And
So,
I know that one of my neighbors would like to say something.
Hey, Steve.
Hi, Steve Kingston, resident. So I want to try to understand just the timeline, because I don't quite understand what changed between 17 and 18. But would you have had a better appetite to take on this road in 2016?
Can't answer that. We weren't involved with it.
Well, what
I
changed?
think
I
so
mean,
the
you
ordinance, yeah, so
understand.
the ordinance changed. So,
The ordinance.
so what we did is and that's why we tried to, and trust me when I say this, we tried to find a way,
Well, it
right?
sounds like
And
you
so
did, but-
we tried to break it down and communicate it back to you in the process, which is, there's a process that exists, it's a four-step process, and no way or shape or form should any developer, and Mr. Colburn could probably testify this too, is that no developer could ever promise a resident that their road was going to be public because it had to go through the town process and ultimately consummated in a resident's approval vote. And no board has approval over
No,
residents,
but
right?
what little I do understand is at the planning board stage, there's a lot of, yes, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this, so you, Mr. Developer, can develop the property.
Yep.
And you guys control that, or the town controls that process. And one of the parts of this process was, yes, we will do everything possible to make this a very nice, good road, including a top coat. And then the other part of it is, okay, now we need to put that money in escrow. And I'm going back, I'm kind of skipping ahead of something, but the point would be, I don't think you should hang your hat so high on that, you did drop the ball. The town dropped the ball. And as though you do have a way, it seems, to be able to disconnect from that. But since the planning board requires, this, in order for us to approve this subdivision, we want you to do this, and this. And the developer says, okay, yep. And then you drop the ball in terms of making them finish what they promised, which doesn't normally happen, right? You would, if they didn't do the right lot size, you would go in and say, hey, guys, wait a second. Those are not the lot sizes that you originally told us you were going to do. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself, but the 2 points, the first point was, would this have changed in 2016 to now? Because one thing that I'm very frustrated about, being the very first one in, was you know, I wanted to see it top coat immediately. And everyone kept telling me, you gotta wait, you gotta wait. The town says you need to have 3/4 of this developed. And then for years, no one bought the lands, or they bought the land, but they, you know, they switched them back and forth, and then and then it didn't get developed literally until the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's why we argued the first part of the 4 steps, to see if you ever got to that 3rd step, which was select board approval, because that probably would have put you in a different ball of wax when we were talking with Warner and Chris. That almost would have smelled more like grandfathering.
And that's why I'm asking.
But we
would the appetite be different, or the rules? Because I don't understand them as well as Charlie and you do, obviously.
It's the 2018 ordinance then that set that other bar. And so you're saying.
But this was decided by a board in 2020, not 2023, right?
The first step was in 2003. In 2003. So I think there's the first step of your process, if we didn't have the ordinance of 2018, then it would probably be somewhat of a different discussion today, but still maybe not an approval because of other things, mainly that we're not addressing in Chris's note, because there's no need to, because the other factors popped up. But I think the nuance here is the ordinance of 2018, the town precedent of not accepting other properties, other roads that are remaining private, the thing that happened to Reed Lane. We would be changing precedents from previous boards on how they reviewed this ordinance.
But you'd also be following up on what an original board
said. I think
you'd be doing. You'd actually be following a precedent that a board set to say, yes, we want this as a road, or we're going to take this on.
It wasn't a precedent.
That's
It was a process.
It works both ways, is what I'm trying to point out.
It wasn't a precedent, Steve.
I think it's the first step of the process.
Okay.
The second step would have been municipality approval, which actually was Chris's letter. So remember, we were turning every rock over here and, you know, banging our heads against the tables to try to see what we could come up with. And Chris's note was okay, what do we do? You know, what we would have to look at, you know, we'd have to CCT the sewers, and road would be smashed where the sewer heads are and lifted up and those types of things.
Sidewalk is too narrow.
The curbs have to be cemented down. So there's niches that would have to be fixed, which are fine and doable. But the 2018 precedent stopped. So I think the part I'm having trouble with, the comments that you guys are saying, is that we dropped the ball, and I know you guys say we did, but I can't, I don't understand that. I don't understand the drop the ball part from the town.
I mean, again, I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but if you go through the basics of the process, right? The developer comes to the town, we want to do this, and you say, this is what you need to do. And the way we're going to make sure you do that is we're going to hold this money in escrow, right?
So
you absolutely have a responsibility to then go to that road, send Chris over there and say, did this get top coated before we give you that money back? So you guys dropped the ball somewhere.
So I think,
now, there might not be anything that can be done
So I think
about
in terms of, so I think that's why we just said we'll take that on aside, and that we will sit down from a board with Mr. Blood and Mr. Hughes and work from the town perspective, and as Charles had said, provide whatever leverage the town can do legally, and see what can be done from their perspective, go back to the records and show Mr. Blood and Mr. Hughes that the town gave back escrow money, that we're not accepting this road as a public road for these reasons, but, you know, that we would hope that Mr. Hughes and Mr. Blood would top coat this and point out some points that Chris brought up in his memo, the things that should be done, you know, to get you to a workable finished road.
Sure.
So we're willing to do that.
I don't know how much leverage you're going to have with that, but one thing that we mentioned in the last meeting was, you know, if you were willing to take this on in a different world, I know you have trouble setting a new precedent or a precedent, but you do have a little back history where you could say, listen, some stuff has gone on.
Yeah.
You know,
I know.
my guess is you think that every private road's gonna come in and say, take us on, please, right?
I don't think
No,
we.
we're just going to follow the ordinance.
Yeah, but I think your point is if we opened it, if we did this, that's part of the
floodgates.
argument is that Reed Lane could probably come back pretty hard and quickly, and two other roads demand to be public. So we can't, that's a Pandora's box that we can't open. And again, with ordinance and stuff, and like everyone knows, you know, ordinances and any laws are really bounded by precedent. And so that's why we had to weigh a lot on what that board did with Reed Lane. And like Mr. Colburn said, the town said, okay, let's soften the blow, we'll plow it, but it's not an easy thing to do either.
We'd be open to that, too.
Yeah, well, that's even worse on your side. But I think what we're proposing to you guys, or what we're proposing from the review for the remaining, for the rest of the select board is that based on our review and due diligence, that we can't proceed with Bosun Lane as a public road. But we're willing to work with the residents and Mr. Hughes and Mr. Blood to see what Mr. Hughes and Mr. Blood can do for Top Coat.
Okay, great. Thanks for your time.
Yep.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll leave that one to you. I did all this talking.
Well, how are we going to put this? I think
Let's see,
we
what do we-
need to vote. So my motion is that the board has concluded to not accept
Bosun Lane.
Bosun Lane as a public road, but, so I think that's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Do we need discussion from
Any
Alan?
discussion from anybody?
Alan, or?
Alan?
I agree with you guys. So, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, 4-0. Then, and we will follow up.
We need.
And I just want to make it clear for myself.
I just want to let the public know that we have spent a lot of time on this issue, all of us. So it's not like Mary Beth put it together, but we all spent a lot of time on this issue, trying to bend over backwards to be fair. And it's just the way we analyze it, Mary Beth put it very well. So anyway, go ahead.
And I just want to make it clear that the board wants me to reach out to Blood and Hughes and
We
set up
do.
a meeting.
Please.
Okay?
But we don't need a motion on that. That's-
No, I just want to make sure that that's clear.
With the Bosun Lane residents.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
All right, to be TBD.
Okay.
At least two of
See
them.
what kind of a meeting, yeah.
Two.
Okay.
Two of them.
Okay, representative, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
representatives.
the Climate Action Planning Task Force update. Pam Morgan.
Hi, everybody. I am Pam Morgan, and I am representing Kennebunkport's Climate Action Task Force. And what I'm here to do tonight is just to give you an update on what the task force has been doing since we started sometime last spring, and basically let you know what the process is that we've been using, what our charge is, reminding people who don't know what the task force is all about. So I'm going to go through some slides. And then what I'd like to do is at the end, if there's questions, obviously we can entertain them, and some of the folks on the task force are here with me tonight. So we'll just jump in and get started. So first of all, if you could have the next slide. Our basic job, our task of the task force is to help the town come up with a climate action plan. So what is a climate action plan? A climate action plan is created by the community to lay out policies and programs to help the town build resiliency and reduce emissions. And so the building resiliency part is really about helping the community adapt to the impacts of climate change. Next slide. And so, as I said, the task force's primary job is to try and help get that plan together. And it's really important in this that we involve the community as much as possible. And so we'll talk a little bit tonight about the community engagement that we've been doing so far. I wanted also just to mention the task force members, so me, Pam Morgan, Jen Armstrong. We also have Mike Weston, John Dykstra from the Select Board, Ella Boxell, Harvey Flashin, Stephen Kagan, and Fred Stafford are all on the task force. Next slide. So early in the process, and I should mention too, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner of these slides, it says Southern Maine CAP Cohort. What that is the Climate Action Task Force that was pulled together here in Kennebunkport. The funding for our work was actually acquired through the Southern Maine SMPDC, Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission. And the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission has 4 towns working on these plans: Kennebunkport, Kennebunk, Kittery, and Biddeford. And each town will have their own plan. So we're working independently with the support of the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission, but we're also sort of supporting each other in the process. So early in the process, we were asked to come up with our vision statement, and this is what we have for our vision statement. We envision a future where Kennebunkport is adapting to the inevitable impacts of our changing climate and is doing its part to slow the rate of detrimental climate change. In this sustainable, responsible, clean energy future, our town and community make all decisions using the 3 pillars of sustainability, which are social, economic, and environmental. And so what that means is decisions going forward will be made really with thinking about the community members in the town, the economics of the town, and the environment as we try and deal with the impacts of climate change. Next slide, please. So one of the first things that we need to do before we can come up with a plan is to look at how is Kennebunkport being impacted by climate change. So again, the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission helped us put together a Kennebunkport vulnerability assessment. And this is a report that talks specifically about the impacts that we will see related to climate change in Kennebunkport, and it's available to everyone to read. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through all of it tonight, but I'll give you just a couple of highlights. And so if we can have the next slide. These are things that many of us will know are already happening. You may recognize, obviously, some flooding that we've seen in recent times. Next slide. This is down near Goose Rocks Beach. Next slide. Other things related to vulnerability of the town have to do with, more ice storms. Next slide. And power outages. So those are just a couple images to kind of let you know. But there are many other impacts as well. So to summarize those quickly, and again, you can read the whole report. If we can have the next slide. Oh, this I did put in here just because so many people that we've been talking with are concerned about sea level rise, obviously, in town. And I did want to let everyone know that the state of Maine does have an online site that you can go to and look at sea level rise and see, given different sea level rise scenarios, where the ocean's going to be. And so this is the link for that site. If you just Google sea level rise in Maine, you can probably find it. The state of Maine is planning for 1.5 feet of sea level rise by 2050 and 3.9 feet by 2100. So just wanted to point that out. Next slide. So aside from sea level rise, there's also other impacts that we're going to be feeling, including extreme storms and precipitation. Since 1895, the annual precipitation in York County has already increased by almost 7 inches. And extreme precipitation events, which are events where we get more than an inch of rain in 24 hours, are becoming more frequent. The sea level rise I've already mentioned. I also want to just say, though, it's not just the rising sea level, but also the frequency of storm events that's going to be impacting us. Increasing temperatures is another thing. Temperature has already increased, and we expect there to be more really hot days. Next slide. Some of the stressors from climate change impacts you might not think of right away really have to do with our community cohesion due to people moving in and out, a smaller tax base, which might limit our ability to meet residents' needs, and businesses may suffer downturns, especially in the fishing, tourism, construction, and real estate industries. Drought, we expect to have more drought and reduced winter snowpack, which then contributes to summer and fall droughts. And finally, marine conditions. Many of you may have already heard that the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 99% of the world's oceans. And ocean acidification is also occurring, which puts, for example, clamming at risk. So, as I said, that's the bad news that we're dealing with, and you're welcome to read more about it in the report. Next slide. The other thing we had to work with was the town had already had a study done about our emissions in Kennebunkport. And I think it's easiest just to look at the figure on the left, that pie chart, because if we're going to be looking at how to reduce our emissions, we want to know really where should we be targeting our efforts. And you can see from the pie chart on the left that in Kennebunkport, most of our CO2 emissions are from transportation, followed by residential emissions, and then commercial. So those are sort of the big pieces of the pie of where carbon dioxide is coming from in our community. Next. Okay, the community engagement piece. This has been what we've been spending a lot of our time doing. Let's see, I guess if you put the next slide up, I'll remember when we did the survey. Last March, March into early May, we started with a public survey. Hopefully some of you took it. We had 381 responses to the survey, and the survey was online as well as paper copies around town. And again, you can go and see the results of the entire survey, but we just pulled out a few of the highlights for you for tonight. So 92% of citizens who responded to the survey expect climate change-related impacts in our town. So a lot of people do expect these things to happen. 100% of the younger folks who took the survey, and by younger folks, we're defining as around 40 and younger, which when we met with the high school kids the other day, they kind of laughed at that. But at any rate, that's how we are defining younger folks in town. 77% of people in town who took the survey were very or extremely concerned about climate change. So a lot of folks in town are concerned about this. And the top two expected impacts we learned from the survey were effects on the natural environment and on infrastructure. And then third was the economy, which was really kind of a distant third, and only 56% of people who took the survey thought the economy would be impacted in town. And overall, yes, younger people did have higher concern levels. Next. So at the end of the survey, there was a question basically that said, would you like to get more involved or learn more or work with us? I can't remember the exact wording of the question, but we had about 80 people respond positively to that and said they wanted to continue to be involved in this, which was great. So we reached out to them and formed several community sounding boards. These are small groups of people that we meet with pretty regularly. We've had 4 meetings and some more coming up with these community sounding boards. So as we work on the climate action plan, we are presenting what we're doing to these folks and getting their input. Next. We've also sort of taken the show on the road because not everybody has time to come to these meetings, but we've attended other meetings, for example, with Rotary, the Goose Rock Beach Advisory Committee. We met with Allison Kenway over at Public Health, et cetera, as I already mentioned, the high school students. We did have a larger public discussion at Graves Library in August. That was well attended. We'll have another one in November. And we are also working at meeting with local businesses, especially down in Dock Square. That's going to happen in November as well, now that their busy summer season is kind of coming to an end. So lots of attempts to reach the community and engage the community in our discussions. Next. So really the crux of the matter, though, is what are we going to do about all of this? So the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission, working with us, gave us a list of 70-some strategies that they thought would apply to Kennebunkport's task force's job of coming up with a climate action plan. And we worked with the town to come up first with some criteria for how do we prioritize? How do we figure out which of these 70-some strategies are going to be best to include in the plan for Kennebunkport? And so we used these criteria as we thought about the strategies and tried to prioritize them. Is the strategy effective in reducing emissions and building resiliency? Is it cost efficient? Again, considering cost to implement plus potential for positive impact, could we perhaps get outside funding, et cetera? Is it feasible? Will it be supported by the public? Do we have enough staff or volunteer time to actually carry these things out? And is it equitable? So those are the strategies, are the criteria that we've been using as we've been working on our strategies. And next, I will tell you where we are with that. So we, again, as I mentioned, we first had this whole list that we started with, about 70-some. We, as a task force, took the first crack at reviewing those with the criteria and came up with a shorter list, which then we met with our community sounding boards. We've also met with town staff to get some input. And we've also been sure that these strategies align with the Board of Selectmen's 2021 climate goals, which I think were in your packet, as well as a comprehensive plan. And so we've just, as a matter of fact, last night at our meeting, come up with our second draft of strategies. And so that's where we are right now. We'll be doing a little more community outreach with these before we come up with our final list of recommended strategies. Next. And then finally, what's next? So as I mentioned, we'll keep looking at the public, working with the public to get outreach and feedback on our job here. We're hoping to have the plan completed by March. It will go to the select board for final approval. And of course, staff will have to be involved so that there can become some discussion around how we're going to implement the plan. That will happen in the future. So that is the update, what we've been up to, and I'm happy to take questions, comments, and my colleagues are here ready to jump up and help answer questions if anyone has any.
Thanks, Pam. I have a couple, just, so on this slide.
Yes.
So how do I?
That's the greenhouse gas emissions
Yeah.
slide, if you want to pull that
Yeah,
up,
David's the pie chart. Yep. Awesome, thanks. So on this one, the port goes through, has very different seasons, as we talked about earlier in the meeting. You know, we have a truncated, high traffic. So how do I read this pie chart? Is this a point in time? Is it average over a year?
I would say it's over the year. So yes, so a lot of the transportation in there is going to be summer.
Buses.
Yeah, buses and
what we
summer
talked about,
visitors. Yes.
Okay. And then how was this actually like collected?
How was that
Is
come,
it-
you know,
is
this
it-
was done before we started, but this was done by a consultant, is my understanding, was hired. It's a professional consultant who does this kind of work. So, and a lot of it was, you know, gathering data from the town. They worked with the town to gather what data they could. And some of it is, I think, you know, desktop kinds of work that they did. But there are, I think it was the ICLEI group. And ICLEI stands, I can't remember what ICLEI stands for, but there is a consultant that was, the town worked with to pull this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, good. Yep. Thank you. Okay. So it's over a year. So we look at it. Perfect. Thanks.
Yes.
And so when I'm looking at, when you go through the strategy part, what, could you at least set some expectations? So I'm not sure, like, come March, like, what's going to come in front of the board?
Right, so here's the thing. We would really appreciate having another opportunity before March to meet with you, or at least to have John and Mike, who are on the task force, to meet with the select board and, get some feedback before March with the strategies that we're coming up with. I think that would be,
It was definitely a plan, as we said,
yes,
that we would pull together.
important
a,
that we
you know,
meet with all of you and you can review the strategies and give us input
Okay.
before we come back here in March.
And I just would have some general comments
Sure, of course.
to the committee in total, just from a resident, from a resident's point of view. So when I look at the pie chart, I go back to the energy crisis decades ago and what utility companies were doing, because if I look at residentials, it's 32% of the pie chart. So for example, could or would some of the strategies be like it was back a couple decades ago where, it would be CMP or the power companies were coming forward with, energy efficient, environmental, studies of people's homes to see how you can make them more energy efficient. I mean, my husband and I looked into solar, when we were redoing our house, but we couldn't get an ROI. We couldn't afford it. So, to jump to an emerging technology for the general residents is tough.
Right.
But since residential's 32%, are there things we could do with CMP or other things that were federally granted to, get, I'm making stuff up now, to get stuff for more energy efficient windows, rebates, like they do for appliances?
Right,
Exactly.
and all of
Those
that,
are-
those are in there.
Okay.
And a lot of it, I think, is helping residents to understand how they can do these things, helping them find the information that they need, helping them. There are plenty of resources that we need to be able to connect with in town, I think, that residents can connect with to help them do things like energy efficiency.
Okay.
And many of them are not very expensive. So yes, that's a really good input, and that is actually one of our strategies.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of my general comment.
Yeah.
Is whenever you're trying to change things, I think whenever I've ever ventured into that change thing in business, I always realized that I was dealing with a melting pot of ideas or thoughts or feelings. So you're going to have people that are high on solar, clean energy. You're going to have people that are in middle road that will go towards clean energy, but will also be more comfortable with fossil fuel for either that's their preference or that's what they can do economy-wise. So if the options could be weighted such that we bring a collective melting pot of energy ideas forward and energy across the spectrum. I'm one of those people that's for diversification of energy resources right now. I follow technology in life, and to me, emerging technologies are very expensive at the front end. Decades later, they'll get better. We heard, tracking solar is much more efficient than static solar panels. You already see dynamics changes. Eventually, the cost curve will come down, but that's not going to be for a while. So I think, I just don't want to turn off some portion of our community by going too strong in one direction.
No, I think we hear you.
I'd rather bring the
I think that's really good advice, and I think, and there definitely will be opportunities. Let's say we're not trying to prescribe. We
Right.
are offering solutions, and there will be a suite of solutions that,
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is very helpful, and I know this has been, I listened to John and Mike, and I know this has been a tremendous amount of work. I'm always grateful for the people that volunteer for these committees.
Yeah, and if I could just
put the
say a word
time.
about that, because I do want to recognize the folks on the community. They have worked very hard, and it's a group that it's a group that works well together. People care about this community. They want us to thrive into the future, and they really step up and volunteer to help. There's been a lot of public outreach, and people have given freely of their time. So I just want to recognize folks in the group because they really have worked hard and will continue to work hard because we're not done yet.
I can echo that. It's one of the most amazing groups I've worked with. I mean, we spent a lot of time theorizing about a lot of things when we're talking about all these strategies and so forth, and it takes a lot of patience. And these people have done it, and it's just, it's been a great experience to work with this group.
And they're good listeners, and that's
yeah,
the most
yeah.
important, I think. So, thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody?
Just one last one, sorry for monopolizing, but I'm the new kid for this one. These guys have been with you guys, so. At the beginning on the mission statement, on the beginning side, there was what I would call more of the hardscape stuff. So is that part of the climate committee that would come back and say, hey, here's some roads that,
Yes.
you know, some seawalls that have to be shored up?
Right, so
or
it
like
won't
what
be
we're doing with-
specific, like, we won't be saying, yeah, this road or this bridge needs to be raised. We wouldn't do that, but we would perhaps say, we advise that be looked at, and a plan needs to be put in place, that we need to review the roads or whatever, and make sure that they're gonna be raised appropriately. So we won't be necessarily picking out certain things in town.
So
It's more general.
Yeah, it's more of a generalization of putting together
It's like the
a forward
comprehensive plan. It's like a
Yeah.
plan,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. It's a vector or a directional thing.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay.
Great job, everybody. Thank you.
This is the old 2020.
Okay, yeah.
This cross-reference with the cat, so it's not, these
Okay, moving on, we're going
Okay,
to
yeah, I got confused when I read it.
accept donations, and I'm going to go down each of them. So we want to accept we'll
You're welcome.
motion after, I'll go through them all, but we'll motion at the end. Perfect. Okay? So we have a $50 anonymous donor to the nurses' account from anonymous for the nurses' account. We have a $50 donation to, also to
public health.
public health. We have a $200, that's another anonymous. We have a $200 generous gift of $200 from Pam Davis in honor of Lois Badger for the nurses' account for the Kennebunkport Public Health nurses to assist with supplies, equipment, training, and needs as they see fit.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. And then we have a $12,500 donation from the Mary Woodman and the Flynn Family Foundation to the nurses' account. This money was granted to Kennebunk Public Nurses to assist with supplies, equipment, training, or any needs they see fit.
Wow.
And that's a big one.
No, Kennebunkport.
Kennebunkport, is it?
Yep, yep, yep.
It
Wow.
does say Kennebunk.
Thank you.
It's Kennebunkport. It does. So please accept this generous donation of another $5,000 from the Mary Woodman and the Flynn Family Foundation, dedicated to the Emergency Food Fund. The fund will provide emergency food to a family in need upon request. It'll work alongside the community outreach services who provide food to our residents upon request, along with the weekly food pantry in Kennebunk.
Marvelous.
So then we have another $5,000 gift from the Mary Woodman and Flynn Family Foundation. This gift is dedicated towards the Emergency Fuel Fund. So we got a donation from that family of $22,500, which is very much appreciated. I'd entertain a motion to accept these donations.
Gratefully moved.
Second.
Alan?
Aye.
I keep waiting.
Said aye.
Appreciation.
Okay, and I say aye, too, so that's that part. Okay, other business, Mary Beth.
I would just like to publicly thank Janina and David Powell for getting my
Yeah,
new
iPads.
iPad set up, and we will be heading towards paperless. So thank you for that.
Do we have a date when we're going to start paperless?
As soon as you will tell me that you're good with it and comfortable.
Okay. Well, we got to work with a couple of
Sheila.
others, too, so.
Yep, we will
Okay.
slowly introduce everyone to
Okay,
this.
good, okay.
I'd say by 2030 would be great.
Okay, Alan.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I'd like to publicly express my frustration that I wasn't chosen for the first round of the tablets.
I'm sorry, but Mike
Not
and
yet.
Mary Beth actually stopped by 5 times by my desk.
I said it first. I could have sworn that. So I'm really looking forward to going digital. So wonderful move. Thank you, Janina.
I have one other thing I neglected to say when there was a discussion about Dave James. I just wanted to let people know that Dave James does a really, really terrific service for the town of Kennebunkport. And he has done it for years. He does it for no pay and a lot of abuse. And he just does a terrific job always. And, well, we all make mistakes, but he owns up to them. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that. I neglected to say it. Yanina.
Alan?
Alan. Oh, I forgot about Alan. Alan, other
I'm still
business.
here, but I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yanina.
So last week I lost my voice, so I couldn't say this under other business, but I just wanted to mention that the Citizens Academy ended. So I had a Citizens Academy project. It was 5 weeks. And I had about 15 wonderful residents who signed up for the academy, and they were my first students. I did a survey at the end, and it was rated at 8.9 out of 10, which is wonderful. I want to say thank you to all the department directors who volunteered their time to do this academy. And I received a lot of really good feedback because the point of it is to be transparent and to explain things and to answer questions. And a lot of them are the residents who participated still stay in touch with me, and I'm always happy to find all the answers. So I do believe that I will try again next year and see how it goes. So that's my.
Oh, thank you. We have a raised hand on Zoom. Oh, okay. Yes, sure. Tanya, you may speak. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Super. Since Yanina brought up the Citizens Academy, this is Tanya Alsberg, resident Kennebunkport. Since Yanina brought up the Citizens Academy, I just wanted to thank her so much and everyone in the town because I was fortunate enough to be a participant in this first group. And it was incredibly informative. I feel more connected to the town. I'm even showing up to meetings. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. Okay, approve the town warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Alan?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, town warrant's approved. Adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Alan?
Aye.
Aye for this one.
Out of here.